So today I quickly want to go over the draft from Game 2 of JDG vs Top Esports, which happened I think a couple days ago now. And the point I want to focus in on today and talk about a little bit is counterpicking in competitive play. I think counterpicking is something that is vastly underutilized in professional play, and oftentimes, like we saw in this game, teams actually end up self-countering themselves and creating disadvantaged circumstances for their own team. Whether intentionally or unintentionally, this happens a lot more often than you think, let alone not actually utilizing counterpicks when they're available. So JDG, just to quickly run down through the draft, JDG first pick Leona. It's not what I would pick on B1, but a lot of teams think it's a super strong priority pick in the support role currently. And then top, go ahead and answer first rotation with Rumble and MF. So pretty clearly they're going for that team fight wombo combo ultimate layering comp, which can definitely be a valid option if you just want to play for full team fights. And this is where the interesting thing comes in. JDG self-counterpick themselves with picking Cassante into Rumble. And this is what I'm talking about. Teams, like, you have the opportunity to directly counter Rumble in the top lane because they blind pick, and you self-counterpick, giving the Rumble the advantage of them in the matchup. In addition, you pick Jhin into Misfortune. People think that Jhin is a counter, quote-unquote, to Misfortune. That's not actually the case. Misfortune's just straight up a more useful champion. She's better in lane, she scales better, she's going to be outputting more DPS with her ultimate and consistent auto attacks. And in addition, the Jhin build currently with Static Shiv RFC is completely garbage. If people actually wanted to be doing damage on Jhin, they'd be just going Collector into LDR into IE, or, interchanging any one of those items with each other. So through the first phase, you can tell that JDG is actually really far behind just because of their bot lane pick is significantly more useless than tops, and the Cassante is going to have an utter nightmare in this game. Instead of actually utilizing counterpick when it's available, JDG just say, hey, Cassante is a commonly accepted strong champion, we'll just throw him in the comp and say, yeah, go do a Cassante thing, when in reality he's not going to be able to play the game at all into Rumble. And then top esports, go ahead and round out first phase with the Lucian in the mid lane, which is a completely strong pick. I think they're trying to bait JDG into picking the Corki, which isn't really a bait, honestly. Corki's just the strongest champ in the game, in my opinion, and should always be B1'd. That's another thing that's absolutely crazy about this draft, is that Corki made it to B4. He should be first picked in every single game, assuming he's not banned. He made it through both ban phases, and he made it to B4. Absolutely crazy, in my opinion, that this strong of a champion is going that unrecognized that long in the draft. So pretty crazy that these teams call themselves pro teams when they're drafting this horribly. Anyways, TES had that Alistar pick to combo with MF on R4, which is fine. It's kind of just there. It's not great, it's not bad, it's not what I would pick, but it's fine. And then JDG rounded out with the Zyra and the Corki rotation, like I said. The Zyra is perfectly fine, kind of get the pick of the litter when it comes to the strong AP farming junglers, which is perfectly fine. And then top, go ahead and R5 counter with Ivern, which is fantastic. Ivern scales great and combos really nicely with the double marksman. Top esports have a really strong scaling teamfight draft, and JDG just completely put themselves in the gutter in this draft. They have no idea what they're doing. The Jin's going to be useless, the Cassante is going to be even more useless, and this is what I'm talking about. Not utilizing counterpicks is a huge blunder in the draft phase, no matter what. And so now, I want to skip over to my draft, where I'm going to be taking the place of JDG and showing you what I would have done in their shoes. Alright guys, so we're here at the draft phase. Now, if I were JDG in this game, there's really no question about it. I would go for B1 Corki. I really don't think there's any other pick that should be commonly B1'd. This is by far and away the strongest champ in the game currently, even after the nerfs. As soon as you hit that 3-item power spike with Trinity Force, your completed tier, and Infinity Edge, the damage is just absolutely illegal. And by the way, people who are doing this RFC third on Corki, they're delusional. Just build Infinity Edge third on Corki and you'll be set for the game. RFC is a completely overpurchased item. It's really trash, especially when compared to Infinity Edge third on Corki. So just go IE third and you'll be good on Corki. Anyways, red side went ahead and first rotated Rumble and Misfortune. Now, as with yesterday's video, I want to point out that yes, I know that if I were picking these things on blue side, they would be answering differently on red side. Again, I'm just showing it for the purposes of the video. counterpicking is necessary and good. So, as with yesterday's video, I said counter what enemy team just picked and pick the next OP. We can actually double counterpick here because they blind picked 2 roles instead of just answering mid lane like they should have. So what do we want into Rumble? Well, we don't want to self counterpick by picking a melee tank that can't fight at all in the early game. So we're not going to be picking Cassante, we're not going to be picking Ornn. We want to pick something that can fight and contest the Rumble in the early levels. The two picks that come to mind immediately are Tryndamere and Warwick, and I'm just going to throw out a wild card because it's fun and it's not often picked. The Warwick is actually just a direct vacuum counter into the Rumble at every stage of the game, I might add. So I wouldn't be opposed at all this game to just sending Warwick in the side lane the entire game and saying, hey, you play isolated against the Rumble, you're going to win that matchup no matter what. If they overload to kill you, we can get something on the other side of the map pretty consistently there as a trade. So I really like this matchup, and I wish that more people actually utilized this counter pick, especially into Rumble, because I notice a lot of people are kind of at a loss for words at how strong Rumble is sometimes, when in reality teams just pick random crap tanks into him, and the champion looks really good. He's a strong champion for sure, but when we're picking Cassante and things into the Rumble, obviously it's going to look super broken because these champs can't play into the Rumble. Anyways, Red side also had the Misfortune on R2, so we want to go ahead and pick something to counter that. Now, to be fair, Misfortune doesn't really have a lot of immediate hard counters, especially in the lane, and the same goes for most ADCs. I think that bot lane ADCs are the least important and the least counterable directly in terms of matchup. So we're kind of just going to go with something that matches themes with the Misfortune itself. So we want a strong laning phase that can maybe, skirmish in the early game, but we definitely want to focus on that range scaling team fight power. So like yesterday's draft, I'm going to go ahead and go with the Twitch on B3. So far through the first phase, I'll go and lock in that Lucian as well for red side that they locked on R3. Through the first phase, you can already see that we have much better scaling, and we have a winning top lane matchup, and we have an even mid lane matchup. People think that Lucian is a Corki counter. That's not actually the case. If the Corki just chills and, sacks 1 or 2 farm, he's going to be completely fine, and he'll be able to play the lane out just fine. And as soon as he really gets his Triforce, he's fine inside of the game. And then the Twitch as well is going to scale and be able to have a field day into this team because they're such short range. So moving on to phase 2, R4 was Alistar, I believe. So like I said yesterday, the super basic, easy draft strategy. Counter what enemy team just picked and pick the next OP. Keep in mind that you want to build a cohesive comp yourself. It's not only about countering what the enemy just picked, it's also about staying within the same themes as your own comp and making sure your champions are on the same page in terms of what they actually want to be doing. Like we see so many pro teams doing, they split themes. They pick Renekton Nidalee top and then Corki Zeri bot, and they're like, oh well, we want to play early game skirmishing, but we want to play late game scaling team fights. What do we do inside of the game? They don't. That's where it creates trouble, and compromise is kind of just thrown out the window inside of the game. So you want to make sure you're still building a cohesive team comp with consistent themes yourself, while also countering what the enemy team just picked. So into Alistar, we actually have a lot of options. We can pretty much pick anything ranged. Morgana would be a valid option just for the black shield and being able to protect the Twitch at any given moment. But I think I'm going to go with something a little more basic here and just pull out the Lulu. I think this is a really strong option because it pairs insanely well with the Twitch, scales really well like the rest of my team, and does well into the Alistar matchup. Into Alistar, you can also just go with kind of a kill lane in the bot lane and pick one of these AP supports like Brand or Xerath. That also works very well into a lot of these tank engaged supports, especially Alistar, who literally doesn't have a level 1. So you can end up bullying out a lot of those melee range supports in the lane phase really effectively. I'm just going to go ahead and play with a safer route and pick a really standard hyper-scaling ADC support combo, and having that enchanter to buff up the Twitch is going to be really, really nice. come teamfight stage. And then to round out, we obviously have our jungle pick left, and this is going to be our blind pick. So basically, since we don't have the ability to counter anything from red side, we're just going to say, okay, what is the best jungler available that fits every criteria that we're looking for? Okay, we need a little CC in lockdown. We need frontline for sure, since we're going to be sending Warwick in the isolated side lane most of the game, and we can't really play team fights with just 2 ADCs and a support, an enchanter, so we're going to need some frontline for sure, and I think the best champion that fits all of those criteria is going to be the Maokai. Now, when my team is going to play Maokai, they're going to play him the right way, meaning he's going to go Aftershock and he's going to build actual tank items. So this isn't going to be your fluke insta-die getting one-shot Maokai with Liandry's and First Strike. He's actually going to be a Giga frontliner because he's going to have durability through his items and his runes choice. But this is just a quick example of how to use counter picks and actually utilizing them when the opportunity presents itself. Counterpicking is an absolute huge part of the draft phase in League of Legends, and it can really make or break games if you use counterpicks properly. Thanks for watching. See you next time.